or the source and origin of something. Let me give you the definitions again. Arche can mean ruler, authority, or it can mean the source or origin. Now, Revelation 3:14 can be saying that Jesus is the ruler of God's creation, or the source or origin of God's creation. If it means source and origin, what this would be saying is that Jesus is the one that created everything that exists. In other words, God's creation was started by Jesus creating it. Do you follow with me, JayEss? God's creation, right, was started by Jesus creating it. If you follow with me, okay, good. So arche can mean that Jesus is the source or origin of creation. He started it. He brought it into existence. When God wanted creation to exist, He used Jesus to create it. Now that explanation, right, coincides perfectly with John chapter 1 verse 3. That explanation coincides, agrees perfectly with what John says about Jesus in John 1:3. What does John say about Jesus in John 1:3? Now, DK man, if you can post John 1:3. Note what it says, Jay. Jesus, the Word existing before creation, John says, all things were made through Him. Note, when God wanted to create everything, He did it through Jesus. And without Him was not anything made that was made. So note, Christ is the source, the agent of creation that belongs to God. God used Jesus to create everything and bring it into existence. So Revelation 3:14 can mean that Christ is the origin who brought God's creation into existence. You follow with me? If that makes sense, okay. In fact, do you remember how Revelation 3:14 started? Revelation 3:14 started by saying, to the angel of Laodicea, write. So Revelation 3:14 is directed to which church? The words of Revelation 3:14 are directed to which church? Can someone post it again? Laodicea, right? Okay, note. And unto the angel of the church of Laodiceans write. So note, these words are directed to the church at Laodicea. Now why is it interesting? It's interesting because the epistle of Colossians was to be read by the same church. When Paul wrote the epistle to the Colossians, he told the Colossians to send this letter to the Laodiceans and let them read it. Colossians 4:16. Colossians 4:16. See. Now you see why that's crucial and important understanding Revelation 3:14. Colossians 4:16, the church at Colossae, however you pronounce that word. Guys, how do you pronounce the word church at Colossae? Is it Colossae or Colossae? Colossae. You know how it is. I have a hard time speaking English, all right? Let alone Greek. Anyway, note here, Colossians 4:16. And when this epistle to the Colossians read before you, cause that it should also be read aloud in the assembly of the Laodiceans. Did you guys catch it? This letter to the Colossians had to be read to the Laodiceans. Now, why is this important? Because I said Revelation 3:14 means that Jesus is the beginning of the creation of God, in that He's the source, the one who created everything. This is exactly what Colossians says in chapter 1, verses 15 to 17. In Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 to 17, it says that Christ is the firstborn of all creation. Firstborn meaning the one who's supreme, preeminent over creation, because He's the one who brought it into existence. Colossians 1, 15 to 17. Post that, please, DK man. Colossians 1, 15 to 17. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Firstborn meaning not the first one born, but firstborn in the sense of the one who holds supremacy, the highest position over creation. Why? Because of verse 16, it tells you. For by Him, by Jesus, all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through Him and for Him. He is before all things. He exists before all things. And in Him, all things hold together. Now, Jay, if Colossians says that Jesus created everything, that all creation was created in, through, and for Jesus, doesn't this make Jesus the origin of creation? The origin of creation? If everything was created in, through, and for Him? Okay. Now, remember, Colossians was read by the church at Laodicea. The Laodiceans had read what Paul wrote in Colossians 1:15-17. In light of them having read Colossians, when they read Revelation 3:14, how do you think they would have understood the statement that Jesus is the beginning of the creation of God? Would they have understood the word arche to mean he's the first one created? Or would they have made the connection with Colossians and assumed that he's arche in the sense that he's the source of creation, the one who brought all things into being? How would they have understood source, the word arche? The first one created or the origin of creation? Exactly, right? If they read Colossians and note that in, through, and for Jesus everything was created, and he sustains everything. Remember what 17 says? He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He sustains all creation. Then when they come to read Revelation 3:14 and see that Jesus is the arche of the creation of God, they would conclude that arche here means the source and origin of the creation of God, because they would recall that in Colossians, Jesus is said to be the one who brought everything into existence, and he keeps everything going. Everyone following me, or am I confusing anyone? Did I lose anyone, or is everyone okay? Follow with me so far. So, glory to Jesus. Okay. To further prove that arche can mean that Jesus is the source of creation and not the first one created, John uses the same word arche. He uses the same word arche as one of God's names. When he speaks of God, he calls God the arche and the telos. English translation, the beginning and the end. Now, DK Man, post Revelation 21:6-7 for us to see that one of the names of God is beginning, coupled with the end. He is the arche and the telos, arche kai telos, the beginning and the end. Same word arche applied to God Almighty. Revelation 21:6-7. Now watch why this is important, JayEss. Now watch. Jay, let me finish the point and then you can have the mic, sister. Revelation 21:6-7. Note, Jay, watch. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Note the word beginning there. That's the Greek. That's the English translation of the Greek word arche. So here God says, I am the arche and the telos, beginning and the end. Arche, same word. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment. The one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. Question for you, Jay. God is said to be arche, the beginning. Does this mean that God was created because he's called the beginning? Or is God being called arche in the sense that he's the source of creation? In what sense is God called arche? In what sense is God being called arche, beginning? The same word applies to Jesus. Exactly. No one in their right mind would say that God had a beginning because he's called the beginning. He's called the beginning in the sense that he is the source of creation, the beginning and the end. Now what makes this fascinating? The very titles, beginning and end, used of God, is applied to Jesus. Jesus is the beginning and the end in the same way that God is the beginning and the end. Revelation 22, verses 12-13, and verse 20. DK Man quotes Revelation 22, verses 12-13 and verse 20 back to back. 12-13 and verse 20 to see that Jesus identifies himself with the very titles of God. He, like God, is the beginning and the end. He, like God, is the Alpha and Omega. Now watch here, Jay. Behold, I am coming soon. Note, the one who's coming is speaking. I am coming soon, bringing my recompense with me to repay everyone for what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Now don't forget, in Revelation 21, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, was God Almighty. Yet here, the one who's coming soon, who identifies himself as the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, is Jesus Christ. How do we know? Because look at verse 20. He who testifies to these things says, surely I am coming soon. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus. So Jesus identifies himself as the beginning and the end, and the Alpha and Omega. Jay, what does it mean when Jesus says he's the beginning and the end? The same title used of God. What does it mean that he's the beginning and the end? The very title used of God. Exactly. Well, if he's identifying himself as God because he's claiming the very titles of God, then how can he be the first creature? How can a creature be identified with the very names of God? A